It is 11 o'clock on the dot. You know what that means, right? Let's get started. So today, I'd like to welcome everyone to the Commercial Multifamily Masterminds and the Underwriting Show. And this is where we discuss underwriting. Underwriting is the topic. Underwriting is what we do, right? So just waiting for the guest speaker to arrive. He may have got caught up in in a little something, but we'll give him a few minutes. And in the meantime, let's do a little a little intro. Let's do that, right? We got I don't know if others can see, but so we because a few people are off camera, right? So anyway, oh, Mitch is here. Okay. All right. And we're gonna have this is gonna be fantastic, everyone. I'm telling you right now. Oops. Let's submit. What's up, Mr. Thurman?
You the man. How you doing?
I'm all right. I'm all right. All right. All right. All right. All right. So I'd like to. That's fantastic. All right. So the guest is Mr. Mitch Messer. Now, if if you were here 2 weeks ago, we had a fantastic conversation, and it was so good that we brought Mr. Mitch Messer back. That's how good it was, everyone. So, so now, so last 2 weeks ago, we were discussing underwriting because our platform is about underwriting. But we were discussing a lot of things concerning underwriting and things, what to expect and so forth, and what you should look for in underwriting. But before we left, he said, "Wow, we didn't even get into where he is, right? Where he is right now." So before we before I delve into that, you know what we have to do. We always must show respect to the host. And what I'm going to ask, because if you missed the intro from last 2 weeks, I'm going to do things a little different. Since we brought him back, I'm going to ask Mitch if he would tell us about him, because there may have been something that I may have left out from last 2 weeks. All right. And if anyone want to know about more about him, hey, you could check him out on LinkedIn, you could check him out different places, but also check out the show before this one that we had. Okay. So, Mitch, First of all, welcome back for part two of the Commercial Multifamily Masterminds Underwriting Show. And before we get started, let's tell everyone a little something about yourself, and we're gonna take it from there. We're gonna start running. Can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
There you go.
Okay, cool. First of all, thank you so much for having me back. I had a blast the last time I was on the show. Had a really great time, and I'm looking forward to sharing a little bit about where I am and what I'm doing. But
Okay.
for those people who may not have listened to the previous show, the reason why I wanted to talk about what we talked about last time is uh, they say if you can't be a great example, be a uh, at least demonstrate what happens if you don't do the right thing. I didn't do the right thing. I didn't underwrite in the beginning of my real estate career, and I paid the price. And I wanted and I want people to hear that because everybody talks about how they did it right and everything worked out great. You rarely hear the situation where someone goes, "Well, I messed up completely and I got crushed. Please don't do this yourself. Learn from my mistakes." And that's, I wanted people to hear that I made a mistake, and my mistake was not in underwriting our deals. We got started in 1999. We did not do a good job of underwriting, and when the market tanked, we went right along with it because we didn't realize how close to the edge we had been operating for years. I became, they say there's no zealot like a convert. I became a convert to underwriting and the financials because I saw what happens when you don't do it properly. And so I have become a huge, huge fan of underwriting, understanding the numbers, and I want to share that message with other people. So your show last time we spoke was an opportunity for me to bare my soul and explain to people. I just froze. That looks bad. Hopefully you
That's
guys
okay.
can see.
Don't worry. We can hear you.
Okay, cool. Hopefully it'll come back eventually. So that was last time we spoke. What I really
Great.
wanted to talk about this time is I kind of wanted to extend that conversation because people think, oh, if I do underwriting, it just relates to you know it's a small piece of what you totally do. And I want people to understand that the beauty of underwriting is that once you get that, underwriting in the United States is the same thing as under the same concepts, cash flow, cash and cash return, net operating income. Those apply everywhere. It's a universal skill. So you can pick that skill up and drop it wherever you happen to go. You take that knowledge with you and you use it everywhere in every aspect of your life. And that to me is cool because I happen, as you point out, or as you hinted, I happen to not be right now in the US. I'm actually sitting looking at the Pacific Ocean in Lima, Peru. My wife and I have been here for about a month and a half. And from here, from this window, I can see construction going on here in Lima. We were in Colombia before this. They're building like crazy in Colombia. There's all this real estate construction going on in South America, and it's not for the locals. They understand that there's going to be a huge wave of people coming to places like South America to retire. And so they're building these high rises and these real estate developments to accommodate that. And that means that there's opportunities for those of us who have mastered underwriting and are starting to master networking and sales and master capital raising to take all the stuff that we learned, all the skills that we've built and developed in the States and take our act international. If we want to, we don't have to. But my point is that it's
Right.
not just a US based skill. It's a universal skill.
So, so wow, wow. You just took my brain to somewhere else. But so I want to ask this question then. Okay, so here, like in the United States, I'm going to say we all look for certain things. We look for job growth. We look for uh, uh, median household income. We look for, I'm gonna say, lower crime rate. We all have um, a criteria that we look for in a real estate market. But when we go out of the United States, we know the United States. I may not have been born and raised in Washington, in the state of Washington, but I know what I need to find. I know I need to know certain things. I know where I could get it. But now, once we step across that border into another country, such as Lima, Peru, what do I look for? Am I looking for the same thing? About how I could compare my training as an underwriter, how I could take that and say, okay, well, now I'm in Peru. I could do the same thing. Don't I need to know the metrics there?
You need to know the metrics, but they're the same fundamental concepts that we apply here in the US. You want to see growth, you want to see stability, you want to see the only additional extra is you have to take into account the currency exchange. How does in this case, Peru uses the sol as their currency versus the dollar. So you need to be mindful of that. But other than that, the analysis is exactly the same. And the information that you need to get is the same. The process is a little different because again, everything here is based in Spanish, but there are plenty of and Lima is interesting because if you talk about places like Lima or Peru in general and Colombia as well, there are places in Peru and Colombia where if you landed, if you arrived in town and looked around, you'd go, this looks like downtown Brooklyn. All the people there are dark skinned, look just like you and me, speak no English. There are Colombia has it, Peru has it, because when slaves were brought to the New World, they were brought and they populated Brazil, they populated Peru, they populated Colombia, and so there's a whole lot of people who look like you and me here in these countries, um, and so the dynamic here is a little different than it is in the States. And that's something I think that people just need to experience for themselves. But from a business standpoint, they want to do business with us. They want and need to do business with us. The tourism is a big driver here in Peru and in Colombia. And most of those folks are coming from the US.
So the I wanted to ask about so the laws. Um, you know, getting into eviction laws, getting into who will be able to purchase these real estate properties. I know some countries, if you're not a citizen of that country, they won't let you now unless you're looking for a citizenship to have dual citizenship there, and so forth. Can you tell us what about the laws, eviction laws, citizenship laws? Can you tell us about that? Where, if we go there to try and buy a property, what are we going to run into? What is it that we need to know if someone don't pay their rent? You know, can you elaborate on some of that?
Darryl, I think we lost him.
Did, did we?
Yeah, I was looking for him. He dropped off.
Oh, um, all right. Okay. So, all right. So we're going to hold tight until you come back. Oh, boy, you saw me. I was on a roll,
I was
everyone.
waiting for you to stop talking. I didn't want to interrupt you.
Man, I was hyped up there. Okay. So that's okay. He'll be back.
Yeah.
Because he did freeze. So
Hmm.
so that's all right. Um, so let's do this until he come back. Let's just ask some questions. So Stephanie, when you're underwriting, what is it that you look for in your underwriting?
Well, Darryl, now I'm new at this, and so I have
That's
not.
okay.
Yeah, so I right now I'm just kind of listening and taking notes.
Yeah,
But when I did it years ago and looking at my properties, I made a lot of mistakes, like from what he said. I wasn't looking at my margins. I was just kind of looking at the cash flow, what was coming in. And so kind of like with him, when the market tanked in 2008, so did I.
got you.
And so that is why now I am really looking and trying to learn this and gain as much knowledge as I can.
Got you. Okay. 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 That's cool. That's cool. Oh, and he's back. Okay. Hold. This.
Is he
All
back?
right. Yeah. All right.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're back. Okay.
Yeah, sorry about that. I don't know why. Sometimes my computer seems to decide that it's gonna wait for a Zoom call to crap out on me. I don't know how much of that you heard, but
So,
tell me what the last thing was that you heard.
so, uh, we heard. I was asking you a question.
Okay.
And it was in reference to the laws. What are the law? Like, if we come over there, I think there's certain things we need to know, like about the eviction laws, about uh, um, being a citizenship. I know some countries you have to be a citizen or at least applying for citizenship in order to in order to buy real estate there. So let's say where you are in Lima, Peru, what are the laws like for eviction? What are the laws like for us if we want to come over there and start acquiring asset? Where can we find the data that we're going to need to do an underwrite on a commercial property there?
Yeah, great question. So let's start with the laws. The laws, and again, I'll be first to admit I am not an expert, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not an expert in laws, and I'm still learning. But I'll tell you a couple things that are different here. One is this is not nearly Peru is not nearly as litigious a society as the U.S. My wife and I were just commenting on that. Um, we're in the apartment building that we're in right now. We've been here for about a month and a half, and previously we're on a different unit on the 14th floor. In the 14th floor, we had these two floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out over the view. It was beautiful, and you know that if you had that in the U.S., the windows would not open all the way
Right.
because, from a liability standpoint, they would not let you make it easy for you to get out of that window and potentially hurt yourself because they don't want the lawsuit. Here, the window is open wide. I mean, if you wanted to, you could climb out on there. And we looked at each other like, why don't they have these restrictions? And because if you did that, if you climbed out on that ledge and jumped the 14 floors and met your demise, you'd be on your own. The idea that you'd sue the apartment complex or your landlord, that doesn't exist here. And so there are some differences here. And truth be told, that's a U.S. thing. The whole idea of your coffee's too hot, so you're going to sue somebody. You find a hair in your food, you're going to sue somebody. That's not unique. I mean, that's unique to the U.S. That's not true everywhere else. But I will suggest that the way to get information and intelligence about a new market, one of the best ways that we found is pretty straightforward, and it is to use the people who are already here. So, for example, right now we are in an Airbnb. We have become friends with the Airbnb operator. The Airbnb operator is a real estate investor. It's a husband and wife. They're buying units here in Lima and they're renting it out on a monthly basis to people like us. And so we are their clients. And in fact, we came to this very unit last year. So we know these people from last year. And so we're building a relationship with them. And we're talking to them and having conversations with them about, hey, how is the Lima market? The same questions you just asked, I'm asking them. You tell me how this differs from the U.S. You tell me what the laws are. You explain to me, because they're native Spanish speakers, but they also speak English. The husband flies planes for a local airline, and the wife focuses on the real estate stuff. So they remind, frankly, me a lot of my wife and I. We have that kind of a dual thing going. So we get information and intelligence from the people who are here doing exactly the same thing. And I'll tell you that and I had this conversation with them last year, they need underwriting help and skill too, because they need to. Yeah, well, I mean, it's a rental, right? It's a
Right.
it's a midterm rental, And I asked them the question, hey, what's your cash flow? What's your cash on cash return? And they were kind of shaky on the numbers, and I mean, I get it, but but them understanding that is what's going to help their business grow. And so I can offer that assistance to them. And we can also talk about funding and financing. And our position is, hey, we don't know this market, but you guys do. If you guys were going to buy something in Lima, Peru, what would you suggest that we buy? Or the next time you find a great opportunity, maybe we partner with you. Maybe we go in with you 50-50. You find the property, you do all the work, and we provide some of the financing, and we share in the cash flow, and we get at least a foot in the door. And that's doable everywhere. Wherever we travel now, we talk to the Airbnb hosts. We talk to the people who have real estate in those countries because those are our people. They just happen to not be in the US, but they are the same people. They're us in their country. And so we can relate to them, they can relate to us, we can advise and help them, and they can advise and help us. So it's kind of mutually beneficial. And that kind of brings me to the underwriting is the basis for everything, but I can take that underwriting and I can leverage into contacts and connections and now I'm building my network, and I'm building it internationally. So when I go to countries, I talk to the Airbnb hosts, I talk to the people who are, the porteros, the doormen at the new units. Hey, how long has this building been here? What are they building here? What's that thing down the street? Where's that construction going on? So if you talk to the people, they know what's going on in their neighborhood, and they can share that with you, and then you can start to learn. So to answer your question, I'm not an expert, but I don't know the answers to all those questions, but I know who to go to get the answers to those questions. How hard is it to evict? One of the things that I asked Monique, my wife, to take a picture of, there's an elevator in this building. And a couple of weeks ago, she hopped into the elevator and she looked on the side of the elevator door was a handwritten list of all the tenants who were late on the rent. Publicly available. You sit in the elevator, you look at that, look over to the left, and you see this list of all the people who were late on the rent, names and unit numbers. And again, in the US, you would never have that. It would be a huge violation. But here, that's how they get people to pay. That's how they publicly shame you to pay your rent. And the culture here is such that that's an embarrassing thing. You would never do that to your family, and so the people pay. So I don't know how effective that is, but that is very different than how we would do things in the States. And my only point is every culture has their own set of rules and structures and such. And as you learn those, you get to discover, hey, there's an opportunity to do this where I couldn't do that in this other country. And to me, that's the cool part. That's why we like traveling, is because we get to mix getting out of the US and seeing other cultures, but we bring all of our skills. We bring our underwriting, we bring our network, we bring all that stuff with us, and it makes the experience that much more enjoyable.
So you staying right now in the Airbnb.
Yes.
And that's Airbnb, a lot of tourists, and I'm thinking, I'm thinking to myself, let's say if I were to start investing where you are, but let's say I wanted to get into commercial multifamily. Let's say I didn't want to do Airbnb. So now we're looking at a totally different type of a customer, totally different type of a client. Now I'm looking for someone that's permanent, that can pay their rent. Would in some countries, some people say, yo, that's not a good idea because, especially if you don't know the country. But since you've been there, and you said you was there last year, do you find that the investors there and investors that's coming from the United States to there, are they focusing on Airbnb or focusing on, no, I'm not going to even say they focus on commercial multifamily, but let's say maybe 50% commercial multifamily and 50% Airbnb, or predominant, or 90% Airbnb, or some sort of vacation rental?
That's a great question. And again, I can only speak from what I experienced. I'm sure that there's a different perspective, but from my perspective, the opportunity is, think of all of the folks worldwide, but particularly in the US and Canada, who are considering, giving serious consideration to retiring outside of the US.
Okay.
So in 2024, we're going to hit what's called peak 65. There'll be roughly 12,000 people turning 65 a day in the US this year. We don't know exactly when, but it'll happen sometime this year. You have all those baby boomers who are looking to retire, and they are okay with the idea of, in fact, they like the idea of traveling. And in many cases, they recognize that their retirement funds will go a whole lot further here than they will in the States, because costs here are dramatically lower. So, I tell people you can either eat, and not to be graphic, but you can eat cat food in New York, or you can eat seafood in Lima, Peru, or in Medellin, Colombia, wherever, because the cost of living is so lower here. And so a lot of people are going to make, not everybody, but a lot of people are going to make the decision, hey, you know what? We're just going to sell our house in Queens or in Chicago, wherever. We're going to move to, and in fact, we have some friends of ours did exactly that. They left Chicago area and they moved to Medellin, Colombia, permanently. So that became their new place. They get better healthcare because they have healthcare services. We can get into that in a minute, but they have better healthcare. They have lower costs. They have community, and that their entire building is transitioning over into, thinking about catering to these retirees. And so, yes, people have started to ask the question: what if we built the structure specifically for people coming from other countries to come live in South America permanently for the rest of their lives?
Okay. All right.
Construction costs are lower here. Food costs are lower here. Healthcare costs are lower here. Insurance costs are lower here. So for a lot of people, it makes a lot of sense to consider something like that. And that's a commercial project.
So, okay. So let's jump back to the underwriting part, where here we could either do seller finance, we could get loans, and stuff like that. And also here we have brokers, licensed brokers that also help us find properties and stuff like that. And it's all about being a relationship builder here in the United States, build relationships. So now I'm good. So now let's say I'm ready to take this big move. I'm ready to take this step. We have property managers here. I know that property management is going to be about maybe 3% on big units, 10, 12% on small units. I'm going to build a relationship with my property manager, so I know what my repair and maintenance is going to be. I know all of this. Now, I'm in Peru. Do I have the loan officer? Do I have property manager? Do I have, do I know what my expenses are going to be? What sets the rent over there? Besides, I know people set the rent really, but help us to understand, because we're going to start underwriting. Should I should I still look at the IRR? Should I still look at the equity multiple? Should I still look at the cash on cash? What about my net present value? So can you help us to understand? Say, hey, listen, we're talking underwrite. When you come here, this is what you need to expect and need to do.
Yeah, great question. So the good news is that all of the metrics and the strategies that we know and love in the US apply here. The same mathematical formulas, those are universal. Each market will have its own unique situation. For example, one of the challenges in Colombia is it's easy to get money into investments, but you have to pay a tax to extract money out. So, okay. And there are strategies that people can employ to do that. So, the takeaway that I wanted people to walk away with is not that that they should go from doing deals in the U.S. to immediately jumping out into Peru and trying to take down a multifamily deal here, because I think there is a ramp up. I think you start small with low risk strategies like working with a local, partnering with JV, partnering with somebody who's already got the experience and the stability, and learning a little bit about your expenses and your utilities and the neighborhoods, and learning all that. I mean, just like you would any other new market. I think you want to kind of get your sea leg, get your ground underneath you. But once you've started to build those relationships, and they're just as important, if not more important, here than they are in the States. Once you start to build those relationships, then you can start looking at opportunities to go bigger, to do bigger projects. But the cool thing about here is that the opportunity is, in my opinion, much greater because the costs are so much lower. I mean, in the city of Lima, I think we're paying well under $1,000 for what, if you pick this unit up and dropped it in Atlanta, you'd probably be looking at twice as much in terms of cost. And that means there's a huge amount of opportunity there to work with people who are coming here to explore. They may come here, and it's not either or, right? They may come here for a couple of months to see if they like it, and then if they like it, they may consider buying something down here. So, or consider this: if you're talking about retirees, if grandma and grandpa come down here, well, then the kids and the grandkids are going to want to visit them. So, the grandma and grandpa may have a house here, but the kids may come and stay at an Airbnb for Christmas and spend Christmas. The entire family may spend Christmas in Colombia or Christmas in Lima. So there's tons of that. I want to get back just for a second into the healthcare thing, because that's something that as we all get older, is going to be more and more of a factor. The healthcare system here in South America, in general, is better. Hear me, better than the U.S. Colombia is ranked higher than the U.S. in terms of overall healthcare. U.S. is not the #1 provider of healthcare in the world, not even close. I think we're like barely in the top 20. And Colombia is higher. So it's funny when people talk about, I'm concerned about going down there and not being able to get quality healthcare. Quality of the healthcare here is better. I'm not in Colombia, this is Lima, but is better in Colombia and in Peru and other places like this than it is in the U.S. It's more affordable. The quality is better. My wife had a procedure done last year. It cost a fraction of what it cost in the U.S. The same thing would have cost about, I think we estimated about $8,000 in the U.S. It cost her $220 to get it. It was a colonoscopy. And people ask, is it indoors? Is it a real hospital? And I'm like, Colombia is ranked higher than the U.S. in the quality of healthcare it delivers. We have this sense in many cases that we believe that the U.S. has the best of everything, and this is not true. And when you get out in the world and you see it, you realize, they didn't tell me the whole truth about these other places. And again, I'm not trying to sell Colombia or Peru. I'm just I want people to hear that the time that they spend investing and learning how to underwrite, that is not wasted time. Because once you get that, once you make that yours, you can pick that up and take that any and everywhere you go, and it is valuable. Your ability to look at a deal and go, this is going to make me money. That plays in New York, and it plays in Lima, and it plays in Colombia, and it plays in Rio. That's a universal skill. And once you have that skill, then you can build on that skill. And for us, we build on that skill by traveling because we enjoy traveling, but it also means we now build our network. And it works both ways. There are people in the U.S. who are thinking about investing in Colombia and Peru. But there are also people here in Peru and Colombia and Argentina who are saying, hey, Mitch, how can I invest in the U.S.? I got money to invest. Help me find deals in the U.S. And that becomes really fun because we know how to do U.S. stuff. And if they've got the money, now you're working both angles. You're trying to do deals perhaps in these countries, but you're also trying to help those investors find great deals in the U.S. And that's the part that I really, really like, because there's an ocean of money out there trying to cram its way into the U.S. market. People from Australia and Israel and Spain and Argentina and all these other countries are trying their level best to find great deals in the US, and they can't do it without people like us. They can't
Right.
do it without trusted, experienced partners in the US that can work with them to help get deals done, because their biggest fear is being taken advantage of. And I've seen
Right.
this, I've heard this.
Right.
They say, you need to set up an LLC. Okay, how much does it cost to set up an LLC? Oh, it's only going to cost you $30,000. Well, you and I know it shouldn't cost you anywhere near $30,000 to set up an LLC, but they don't know.
Right.
And so someone scams these people, and then they get burned and they get shy and they don't want to do any more deals because they don't know who to trust and who not to trust. But if you treat these people well and you work with them, there's a line of them. The minute that they realize that they can work with you and that you're trustworthy, they got tons of friends and tons of family who are just waiting to see what happened to them. And if they survive, then they're right behind them and say, okay, here's my money. Can you do the same thing for me? And hey, can you help me out too? Can you help me out too? And it never ends. And now you're the guy. You're the guy in the US that can help them get deals done. So I want people to see that the playing field is not just doing deals in Peru. You may never do a deal in Peru, but you might find a Peruvian who wants to do deals in the US. And your contacts and connections, I mean, they don't have here syndications for the most part. Syndication is not really a thing here, but it's a thing in the US.
This thing,
And if they've got the money, do we have any problem taking money from somebody, from a foreign investor, and investing it in a syndication in the US? We have no problem. But someone's got to explain it to them. So maybe that means you got to learn a little Spanish. Maybe that means you got to learn a little Portuguese. Maybe that means you learn a little Chinese. But if you take the existing skills that you've got and then just layer on top of it networking and language skills, it's the same. I mean, is cash flow in Spanish? Yeah. I mean, it may be a different term, but the concept is the same. So
right.
So all that time that your team is spending learning how to underwrite, but I just wanted people to hear that it's much bigger than they realize. That having that skill, having that arrow in your quiver, having that club in your golf bag means you can play any and everywhere. And that's why it's so important to get it as quickly as you can, because once you have it, it just gets stronger and stronger and better. And everybody wants that skill. That is, in my opinion, the fundamental skill of being an investor. Because if you can't underwrite, you're not investing, you're gambling. And I'm not a gambler. I don't like gambling. I want to know that I'm going to make money, or at least have a high level of confidence that I'm going to make money. And that's all underwriting is, right? It's just how confident am I that this investment's going to make me money?
Are you curious about underwriting? Do you want to learn about underwriting so that you could take that skill and underwrite any property, any business? Underwriting is an art. And once you have that skill, that art, you can underwrite apartments. You will have the understanding to underwrite apartments, underwrite supermarkets, you'll be able to underwrite any commercial property. If you would like to learn more about underwriting and the importance of underwriting, to where you can even underwrite in another country, join our coaching program. The information will be below. Now let's get back to this show. You know something? You definitely have me looking at things on a totally different level, because I've only looked at underwriting in the United States. Never thought about going anywhere else, outside, of the United States. And actually, if I was to go outside the United States, to be honest, I didn't know. I didn't know if the concept was the same. But to hear you and to hear what you're saying, boy, it's like a whole door just opened up to someone that's an underwriter, right? A whole new world. It's a whole new world now. The only part I need to learn in my new world is how much of a difference is it between the United States? I just need to know the numbers. That's all I need to know. But you know something? This goes back to that question I asked you. I asked you a question on our last show. The question was, if there was no IRR, if there was no equity multiple, if there was no cash on cash, no equity multiple number, no cash on cash number, no IRR number, but the only thing we had was income, expense, NOI, and you saw, and you knew your debt service, and you knew after that was that cash flow. I asked you, where would you want your cash flow to be? I don't know if you recall that question,
I do.
but this now makes me think. Should I? I'm I'm not saying just ignore the IRR and equity multiple and all of that, those rates, those percentages. But now this makes me think. If let's say I go outside the United States and I'm talking to a Peruvian investor, are they going to know what I'm talking about when I say IRR? Are they going to know what
Yep.
I'm talking about if I was to say equity multiple? So now that this goes back to my question, where should I want my cash on cash, my cash flow to be? Because I know once I get that debt service, that whatever's after the debt service is cash flow.
Yep.
Are we positively cash flowing? That's it, right? And how much of the cash flow we want. When you're talking with your investors over there, do they have a concern for those metrics? IRR, equity multiple, cash on cash?
They do. And let's put it this way, the smart ones do. I mean, it's like anything else. I mean, there are people here who understand their numbers, and the people here who don't get it, and who just riding the wave, kind of like I did in 2006 until the bottom fell out. But the better ones do understand how the numbers work, and and all this changes for them. It means I see this a lot of times in the U.S. People they'll live in a market like New York. New York is an expensive market, and so your numbers are going to be not as great in New York as it could be in other places. But people go, well, I live in Queens, so what choice do I have but to do deals in my local market? But we know, well, there's no reason why just because you live in Queens that you have to do deals in Queens. You can do deals in Tulsa. You can find yourself a better market. And the way you measure better, one of the ways you can measure better is cash flow. So if I'm in a market where the cash flow is the best cash flow I can get is $50 a month, that's not a market that I'm going to be looking for. I'm going to try to find myself another market like Tulsa, like Augusta, Georgia, like Lubbock, Texas, that gives me a better cash flow. But I'm looking at the whole board, right? I'm looking at the entire playing field to see what's possible. And all I'm saying is that take that exact same dynamic and now, instead of just looking at it from the U.S. standpoint, make it global and do the exact same thing for other markets. And just so you translate. So, how many solas is a dollar? Fine, do the math to get to dollars, but you can do the same math analysis that you would do for New York versus Tulsa. You can say New York, Tulsa, Lima. And now you have all three of them, and you go, okay, which one's going to be the best deal for me? And I'm going to pick the one that makes the most sense for me. If I can get a better return, if I can get a better cash flow in Lima than I can in New York or in Tulsa, then maybe I should spend more of my time focusing on Lima. But to your point, the question that you ask is a great one, and the answer is this is universal. This is true everywhere. Internal rate of return is there's no language, issue with that. That is the math. The math is the universal language. So once you understand how to do that, you can take that skill set and talk to somebody in Lima who may not have that skill set and help them understand how they can optimize their return, how they can improve using some of the strategies that from the US. So all this stuff is possible. I wanted people to hear that what they're doing is not this tiny little isolated thing that you do once and you forget about it. That this becomes a part of everything you do from now on. This becomes a language that you speak, just like when you're learning a new language. Now you've learned this language of money. You've learned a language of money, and that's spoken everywhere. And that's why I wanted to talk about this last thing, because the underwriting, in my opinion, is the foundation. The networking for us at least, the networking and the sales, because to me, networking and sales are basically the same thing. It's getting people to talk to you and tell you where the pain is, where their problems are, and
That's
being
right.
sincere and wanting to hear what those problems are so you can come up with solutions that solve those problems. If you're really good at that and you're really good at underwriting, you can pretty much write your own ticket. But there's one other piece I wanted to talk about, and you actually mentioned a few minutes ago, and that is capital raise, right? Because if you have the underwriting and you have the networking, the money is the universal language, and everybody needs that. I don't care if you're Peruvian, Colombian, American, Canadian, everybody wants to get money. And you make a really good point that the banking system here is not the same as it is in the US. They don't have FHA loans here. You can't just, in fact, the whole notion of having loans to help you buy a house to live in, that's a US thing. Outside of the US, buying a house is a major ordeal, which is why once families get a house, everybody in the family lives in a house for like the next 100 years because it took them 30, 40 years to get the house. They don't have this whole notion of, oh, foreclosure. Grandma lives there, then the kids live there, then the grandkids live there, and they pass it down from generation to generation because it took them 20 years to get it in the first place. So there's no secondary market where you can buy and sell security. It's not like the US. Getting a house is a major accomplishment, and most people don't have it. Most people don't have access to buy a house in places like Peru. Only the wealthy really own their own houses. Everybody else is in an apartment. Right. They pay rent for the rest of their lives. So the notion that you can help raise capital for projects makes you extremely valuable. The alternative is they don't get to buy. They don't get the project done at all. And so and I want to throw this out there because I want people to hear it. In Argentina, the rate of inflation was like 98%, which is to say everything doubles in price every year, effectively. So, and why that's relevant is because if you're an Argentinian multimillionaire and you have $1 million in the local currency sitting in your bank account on January 1st, by the time you get to the end of the year, if you haven't done something with that money, it's lost half of its value.
Yeah.
So those people, they invest, they see the US and they see how strong the dollar is, and they go, I need to get my money out of this Argentinian peso and into dollars. I need to find myself investments that throw off dollars because staying in pesos is killing me. And so those folks invest in the US, not just because it's trendy or because it's cute or because it's fun. They invest because that's survival for them. They have to do it. Because if they don't, they lose real money.
Right. Every
single minute that they're not doing it. And so that's why you have all these people who are trying to, that's what I said before, they're trying to cram their way into the US markets, not because it's the cool thing to do, but because if they don't, they're losing money. So they invest because they have to. And so, and there's a wave. I mean, I can't tell you how much money there is circling the globe trying to find a safe place to land in the US, because right now the US is one of the hotter markets. We don't restrict foreign investors from owning real estate. So there's a lot of rules that you don't have in other countries. And we have all the things we just talked about. We have secondary markets, we have other types of financing. And so people can buy houses in the US. So if you're constructing houses, there's a market for that in the US. So think of all those people from all over the world who are desperately trying to do deals in the US and are looking for partners to do deals with in the US. But they don't know you and you don't know them. And unless you do something, they're never going to know you and you're never going to know them. But if you get out there in the world, I mean, and these people are on LinkedIn, they're on Bigger Pockets, they're out there in the world. Some of them may not be speaking English, so maybe you learn a little bit of Spanish, but imagine how cool it would be to be able to attract those people and show them the deals that you've got. I mean, the best buyers for our deals, when we were doing wholesaling in the US, the best buyers were from outside of the country because those people didn't play around. If they saw a deal that they liked, they're like, how fast can I get this locked up and get you paid so I can get this deal? And don't even get me started on owner financing, because if you create a seller financing situation, these people, financing does not exist outside of the US. The idea that you can buy a property without having to go through a bank, without having to have a social security number, without having to show tax returns, that is magic to these people. I wish, I mean, if any of your folks are working in any kind of deal that involves seller financing, we should talk, because that was our specialty. Our specialty was seller financing. And I was talking to this lady from France, and I was saying, hey, like when the seller decides that they're going to take back, their equity over time, she's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, when the seller doesn't need all their money up front, and so they take it over. She's like, we don't have that in France. And since then, I've spoken to every single investor from outside of the U.S. about seller financing, and they all look at me with this blank stare, like, what are you talking about? It does not exist. So if you have deals like that, these people will lose their minds over those deals, because it's magic. They're used to paying cash for everything. So if you show them how they can put 20% down and not have to pay 15% or whatever the ridiculous rate is, these people are your new best friend. I mean, that was our thing. And that's why I'm saying all the skills that you're promoting, they play well in the US, but they make you a rock star once you leave the US and start talking to people outside of the US, because you are the magic man. You're the magic people.
Wow, that is fantastic. Let me. Stephanie had a hand up. Stephanie, what question you have for Mr. Messer?
Okay, Mr. Messer, great information. I enjoyed you last time and this time as well. But when you were saying that you got into the elevator and they had the list of the names of who were late on their rent, is that an Airbnb or is that a mixed use commercial property?
Yeah, it's a commercial property. So I suspect maybe a tiny fraction of these units are actually Airbnb. The rest of them are just regular rental property. And so I
they're
think
multifamily units.
Yeah, it's a multifamily. It's a 17-floor story building. It's a beautiful building. It's got a pool in the top. It's got a work. I mean, it's a nice place, a really nice place. And you'd think for a nice place that people would pay the rent. And I asked her to take a photo of it because I wanted to, in fact, my intention is to post it on LinkedIn because I wanted people to see how things are different in other countries. But yes, if I can, I'm happy to share that with you, because it didn't mean anything to me, because we are just visitors to this place. But the fact that they did that, and that's apparently regular practice. I assume the property management company for this building does that, and no one got sued, no one went to jail. No, that's just the way they do things here. And I assume it's effective. I haven't had a chance to talk to the people and find out, does that really work? But I will be asking the host for this Airbnb, because I'm curious about it, because that's very different than what we do. We have to fight to file evictions to get tenants out. And if you live in someplace like New York, your tenant could dig in there and stay there for the next 6, 7, 8 months before you get them out. So, but this is not the U.S. And so this whole notion of, I'm going to get my lawyer no, they don't have that here. And again, I'm not suggesting it's right or wrong. It's just different. Mm-hmm. But you would never see that in the U.S. That would be a complete violation of privacy. But they don't have those laws here. They don't have the Bill of Rights here. So it's a different thing. And to me, that's what's cool about it. And we haven't, my wife and I have spent a fair amount of time in South America. We have done nothing in Europe. We've done nothing in Africa. And Africa is a huge, a staggering opportunity. And everybody there looks like us. If anybody's going to make money helping Africa develop, it should be people who look like us. That's ready-made for people like us to take our skill set and go there and help them develop their businesses. But in order to do that, we have to have skills, and underwriting is that foundational skill. But yes, I'm happy to post that. If you send me your email, I'm happy to send you the photo.
I was just curious if
I thought it was very, very interesting.
Yeah, I was just curious if it was a mixed-use building. It's
a mixed-use building, and the property manager, I believe, of the building is the one that posted that notice in the elevator. Again, I don't know how effective it is, but it got me to thinking. It made the light bulb go off that we are not in the U.S. anymore. This is a whole different environment. But I think that has tremendous opportunities, and also, I don't like to use the word. I don't believe in the whole third world thing, because if I could easily show you what. I don't know if I can do this. I don't think I can do it easily here. I could turn my camera around and you could see what I'm seeing from my window. You could see that this is not huts and tin roofs. This looks like this could be downtown Manhattan. They got skyscrapers here. I mean, all the stuff that you would have in any major city, they got here. And this is not the biggest city in South America. So my only point is that, and South America is not the only place that I want people to focus on. All I'm saying is that all the skills and the training, oh yeah, thank you. All the skills and the training that you're developing now, rest assured that those skills are going to serve you for if you want them to, will serve you for the rest of your lives. So learn them well, and then get out here and use them, because the best way to hone your skills is to use them. So I'm analyzing deals here just because I can, just because I mean, it's math. I can run the math, I can run the numbers, and I can have the conversation. So I'm encouraging everybody that's hearing this to just to look at the whole board, because the board is not just the U.S. The board is way bigger than the U.S. We realize we're not even the major market here. There's markets that dwarf the U.S. There's things that the U.S. has that are great, but just don't forget that there's a whole world out there that thinks differently than perhaps we've been thinking in the U.S., that presents different opportunities for us, and that in many ways we could and should, I would argue, but at least could play a significant role in the development of those countries in a way that would be satisfying for everybody. I would love to see more people. I see people out here that are traveling and that are bringing their families and that are enjoying this, and it's great. But let's bring the business too, because the opportunity here is not just to come and be a tourist and sit on the beach, and that's great. But bring your business skills, bring your energy, bring your capital raise, bring all that stuff, because there's opportunities out here that we can take advantage of and help everybody lift that boat.
So, you know something, man, this is fantastic, and we only got 5 minutes left. Is there anyone else that want to ask a question? Because I could keep going forever and never, never. Is there anyone else that want to ask a question? Say, agree. We locked up a property in Punta Cana. Oh, okay, all right. Did you something? Boy, some of the questions I have is like basic questions, like, when did you walk the property? What else? What are some of the questions that what are some things? So let me ask this. If I wanted to help some of the investors there underwrite properties, how can I do that? How can I help them if they needed my help?
Yep, that's a great question. So I would, and the help that they often need is capital raise. And so there are people in South America who are looking to do deals in the U.S. There are people in the U.S. who have funds and are looking to do deals in South America, and you can just be the conduit, the connector between those two parties. So I tell people, for me, my number one tool for finding these people happens to be LinkedIn. And in LinkedIn, I can search by country. So when I come to a country, I look and see all the people who are in Lima that I can find. And if I can meet those people while I'm here, I'm going to do it. It costs me nothing. Why not? I can find them on LinkedIn. I can make the introduction, and then I can meet them face to face in the country that I'm in. I'm definitely going to do that. So, and then if you do that, like the person who manages the Airbnb, she has multiple Airbnbs. And so what I asked them is, hey, can you send me your numbers? Just show me your income, show me your expenses, show me all that stuff so that I can run them and get my own calculation for net operating income. And because it's underwriting is underwriting, right? So if they're willing to share it, then why not? If they're willing to share it with me, now I can see, okay, utilities here are this, or taxes here or that. I can see all those things, and I can start to figure out in my head how to understand that. And if you didn't do that for anything other than just every Airbnb that you ever traveled to, befriend the person who runs the Airbnb and ask them, hey, would you be willing to share can we talk about your numbers? Can we talk about, is this thing making money for you? Or do you like this Airbnb thing? Are you looking to grow? Are you looking to expand? Do you need capital? Do you need a partner? And if they say no harm done. But we probably stayed in 50 or 60 Airbnbs in the last year. If I ask all those people, I'm going to get at least 5 or 6 that are going to go, hey, yeah, I'd like to talk to you about what we can do. And then I'm off and running. So
Right.
the networking part is easy. LinkedIn is my go-to because it makes it really easy to search by country. And then when I find those people who are doing real estate in these countries, if I'm in that city, I'm going to, can we meet for coffee? Can we meet for dinner? Can we talk? Can we connect? Because it is a relationship thing. And if I'm going to be there anyway,
Why not?
why not meet the people? If I'm sitting in Lima, if you're in Lima and I'm in Lima and you're doing real estate, let's talk. Whether you're local or, and it's not just locals, right? There are other people that I meet who are from other countries who are also doing real estate. Now I'm getting like a threefer. You're here in Lima, but you're from, Portugal, and you're here on vacation, but you're a real estate investor. Well, I want to talk to you too. I want to talk to everybody, and that's why I say so. The underwriting and understanding the language of money is critical.
Right.
And then I would say from a networking standpoint, I would strongly recommend people start building those language skills. I'm learning. We've been here for in South America for about 2 years. My Spanish is passable. I understand it much better than I speak it, but I can understand it and I can speak it well enough to have a conversation. And if I fall down, there's always Google Translate. I have to. I'm working on my Mandarin Chinese because you know how many people, how much money there is in China trying to cram its way into the US? Billions. And it's not just China, it's Singapore. So how cool would it be to be able to have a conversation with a Chinese businessman in Mandarin about a real estate deal in the US? How cool would that be? I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah,
So my only point is that the playing field is as big as you can imagine. It's the entire globe. And to me, that's exciting. To me, that's not the bad news. That's the great news. Because once you speak these languages, and once you can actually help, people want you on the team. If you're bringing capital, they don't care where you came from. If you're bringing capital, you have a seat at the table. Here's your seat right here, Mr. Murphy. Have a seat. Let's talk because you're bringing what they don't have.
That's right.
So
that's right.
I want to encourage people just to think bigger, and broader, and start building your network now. If you've got kids, get started on getting those kids out in the world now and building their net. How cool would it be? I know people who have 10-year-olds that have their passport looks like, they've been 15 different countries and they've been exposed to all this stuff. So if you have, we don't have kids, we have nieces and nephews. We try to bring them to these places and show them the world because all this stuff is connected. So for me, it doesn't even feel like work at this point. I mean, how cool is it to be able to travel? Oh, and by the way, you can write this stuff off. You can write this stuff off, right? If I have business in Colombia and I have to go to Colombia to check out my Airbnb once a year, guess what? I get to write that off. It's a must.
Yeah, that's right. That's true.
Unit, and I got to check out my unit, so I have to go there and see it. I got to spend a month. So all I'm saying is that why I love what you're doing is because I wanted people to see that what you're doing with them now extends out into the world, and it never stops. And so the more you study and the more you practice and the bigger you build that network, the more money you make and the more fun it is.
Yeah.
To me, I love doing what I'm doing because it's so much fun.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna tell you something. This was fantastic. I learned a lot today, and I'm gonna be honest, I really haven't thought much about outside of the United States. And now, and with my skill of underwriting, which I love, I love underwriting. That's the whole purpose of me, those that have been with me from the beginning of my journey, and it's been a very long time. I don't think anyone on here has known me from the beginning of my journey, but it's always been about underwriting, always. And if I say, I don't know how many times I've said this, but if you don't know how to underwrite, you ain't getting no money.
Yep.
I can tell you that right now. If you
and the flip side of that, that's true. If you do know how to underwrite, the doors are open.
Yeah. So I want to say to Mitch Messer, Mitch, you brought so much knowledge over these last two episodes. And for those of you who did not catch Mitch on the first episode, that was 2 weeks ago. So we did it back to back. So if this is gonna be this is part two. Part one was last 2 weeks, and it was released that day. And this one here is going to be released today. Okay, what am I talking about? This day. It's going to be released today. So, but Mitch, I want to tell you something. Thank you for everything. And you just made me you just made me realize, yo, Darryl, you have a skill, you have a talent
Yep.
that
Yep.
you could go to any country
Yep.
and ask somebody for their profit and loss statement in their language. I guess I'm gonna have to put it in their language. But I like to see a profit and loss statement because I like to buy this building. And then I could take that that profit and loss statement right along with the rent roll. I'm sure they got a rent roll of who all staying in the building, and put it into my model and say, okay, this property is cash flowing or it's not cash flowing. Wow. So the only thing, and then main thing I need to worry about is what's the laws like, and of course, you're gonna look at your crime and all of that other stuff. But I just want to say thank you very much for coming back. And I want you back here again. But so matter of fact, I may have to come to Peru. Maybe I
Come
come
on
to
down.
Peru and you show me what it's like there. What is it like being here, investing here, and everything? Because I'm open. I think at this point, I've been
I'll
doing
make a
this
standing
long
offer
enough.
to anybody
Go ahead.
that's on this call, that if you are thinking about particularly South America, because we've spent the most of our time here. We've been to Argentina, Chile, Colombia, Peru. If you are thinking about coming down here, even if we're not in the city that you're coming to, let's at least have the conversation, because we have a network. We're building a network in those places. We can suggest people that you should talk to. We should suggest places you want to check out. We can suggest resources that you might want to tap into. So, if nothing else, if you have any desire to expand your network into outside of the U.S., let's at least talk, because you may have a presence in places that I don't have it, and I'd love to talk to you about that. Or you may be considering places that I've been, and I'd love to talk about that.
So what's the best way that people could get in contact with you?
So let me suggest this. So LinkedIn is going to be the best way to reach me, to make the initial connection. And I'm on LinkedIn. I connect with but everybody who wants to connect with me, because you never know where your next great connection is going to come from. So if you have an interest, find me on LinkedIn. I will say that and I didn't want to mention this on the previous call because it wasn't the right time, but I'll mention it on this call, that there is I'm going hard into the capital raise, because I'm starting to see out here the
Right.
importance of having capital, and specifically private capital. So I'm creating a community. I've created a community called unfundableaf.com that is intended to help people understand how to use private capital as an investor, or if you have private capital, how to deploy private capital in a way that protects you. Or if you are a intermediary trying to work between the two parties, how to get paid, because that's what I do. How to get paid to have private lenders and operators or borrowers and put them together and get paid so that you can generate value that way. But unfundableaf.com is where I recommend people, if they want that community. We're trying to build that. But if you want to reach me directly to talk about travel, then LinkedIn is the place to find me. And I would love to share whatever resources I've got, because the cool thing about resource sharing is that if you have a great idea and I have a great idea and we share it, now we both walk away with two ideas. It doesn't cost me anything to share my resources with somebody else, as long as you take care of them. As long as when I give you a resource, you don't abuse the resource. But if you take care of that resource, then everybody benefits. So I'm happy to share the people, the contacts, the cities, the business owners, because we haven't talked about that either. Every city that we go to, there's business owners, there's people who own restaurants and cafes, and you want to find out who those people are, because you can help them. I mean, it never ends. This thing that we're talking about is it gets bigger and bigger the more you get into it, and the more you grow it, the more fun it can be. Because as quiet as it's kept, the same underwriting that you're doing for real estate applies to businesses.
Yeah,
And let me just leave this one thing. Let me blow people's mind with this one last comment. I got to make this. If someone made this a few years back, my wife and I were sitting in the car, and the guy was talking about buying businesses, and he described buying a business in a way that was exactly the same as subject to. In other words, you can buy a business with none of your own money, use the assets of the business to buy the business, effectively zero money down. And we looked at each other and we're like, isn't that what we do with houses? We're like, yeah, well then this guy's doing the exact same thing with multi-million-dollar businesses. And so all the math, all the underwriting that you're doing for real estate applies to businesses. Same thing. It's the language. Yeah. So once you get good at this, I mean, again, my head would explode if I tried to go too far down that path. But that's why, to me, this is exciting, because it is everything. Everything that you want is
you're right,
starts
man.
with the underwriting.
Mitch,
and that's why she likes real estate to go do M&A.
Yeah, Mitch, you're absolutely correct. And I always say, just because you buy apartment complexes, you're actually buying a business.
Yep.
Right? You're actually buying a business. So listen, I want to thank everyone for coming. Mitch, I really want to thank you for coming. Again,
my pleasure.
You not only dropped some nuggets, man. You dropped platinum and all kind of, you came from minerals that I don't even know nothing about. So I want to thank you for coming, and I would like to talk with you later on, and even to see some of the advancements that you have had in Peru. So at some point, I would like to have you back and say, okay, well, look at what's going on here in Peru and any other place that you've been to, and let's discuss that. And it's all about underwriting, everyone. It's all about underwriting. All right. So I want to
thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. I'm glad you came. And I just want to also put out there, the recording for here will be released today. Please, you're going to be notified when the recording is released. I'm gonna ask you to please, if you would please give me a thumbs up on the recording. If you enjoyed what you heard today, give me a thumbs up on the recording. I really appreciate it, right? And if you want to be a host, if you want to be a guest speaker, that is, if you want to be a guest speaker on the Commercial Multifamily Mastermind Underwriting Show, hey, reach out to me, okay? Because I'm going to reach out to you. So reach out to me, and I would love to have you, and let's discuss underwriting, right?
Nice.
Thank you all for coming, and I see you all back here in 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
Awesome.
Thank you. Thank you,
everybody.
Mitch. Thank you, everyone.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.